Behind the public smiles and narrative of a warm, cordial encounter, something very different reportedly happened inside the Oval Office last week. Multiple officials say President Trump's meeting with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman turned into a private clash over Israel, one sharp enough to leave both sides frustrated. And the details of that confrontation are only now coming into focus. We're starting today with new reporting that cuts sharply against the public picture painted just days ago by the White House and Saudi leadership. On the surface, the visit by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman looked like it went well. There were wide smiles and warm handshakes and official readouts insisting that the meeting went, quote, very well. But behind closed doors, things apparently took a very different turn. According to U.S. officials who spoke with Axios, the private conversation between President Trump and MBS grew tense, heated even, over one issue, the push for formal Saudi normalization with Israel. And the intensity of that exchange reveals just how difficult the path forward may actually be, despite the White House's optimistic framing. According to reports, President Trump entered that meeting determined to secure movement on normalization. He believes the ceasefire, fragile as it may be, in Gaza creates a window to reshape the region and revive what he considers unfinished business from his previous term. From the Trump administration's perspective, this is the moment. Iran's influence appears diminished, Hamas has lost significant capability, and Washington thinks regional diplomacy could deliver a historic breakthrough. But the Saudis, well, they apparently see the moment very differently. Multiple U.S. officials say that when Trump pressed MBS to commit quickly to establishing diplomatic ties with Israel, the Crown Prince pushed back hard. Not politely, not diplomatically, but directly, in a way that reportedly surprised and irritated the president. MBS told Trump that Saudi Arabia cannot move toward normalization right now. The war in Gaza, he argued, left the Saudi public deeply opposed to the idea of embracing Israel at this moment. And he wasn't speaking abstractly. Public sentiment in the kingdom has shifted sharply over the course of the conflict, and the Crown Prince is keenly aware of that political reality. But it wasn't just public opinion driving his resistance. MBS made something else clear. Saudi Arabia will not sign any agreement with Israel unless there is a, quote, credible, irreversible, and time-bound path toward a Palestinian state. And that point, well, that point is the real fault line here. Because a demand for a Palestinian state on a defined timeline is something the current Israeli government has rejected outright. In fact, Israeli leaders have spent the past several months saying the opposite, that statehood is off the table, permanently. That puts Trump in a, well, let's call it a difficult spot. He wants the deal, and while MBS might be willing to consider the deal, the key condition directly conflicts with Israel's red lines. Inside the room, when Saudi Arabia laid out those requirements, U.S. officials say the tone shifted. The meeting grew tense. One source called it a, quote, showdown. Another said Trump left, quote, disappointed and irritated. And yet none of that friction appeared in the public messaging, where both sides insisted the visit was cordial and productive. This matters for a few reasons, and they all point in the same direction. The first takeaway is that the idea of a near-term Saudi-Israeli breakthrough no longer matches reality. If anything, the meeting showed the opposite. Riyadh is signaling caution, not momentum, and the political ground inside the kingdom isn't ready for a public embrace of Israel. Another takeaway is the disconnect between how Washington sees the moment and how Saudi Arabia sees it. The U.S. believes that the Gaza ceasefire created an opening that should be exploited now. But from the Saudi perspective, the war hardened public opinion and narrowed the political space for bold diplomatic moves. What looks like a strategic opportunity to one side looks like a risk to the other. And there's a deeper tension sitting beneath all of this. Saudi Arabia's insistence on a credible, irreversible, time-bound path to Palestinian statehood puts Riyadh and Jerusalem on opposite sides of an unmovable line. Israel's government has made it clear it won't accept that condition, and the Saudis are making equally clear they won't move without it. That collision creates a structural barrier, of course, that no amount of pressure or optimism can wish away. All of that adds up to a simple reality. The White House's vision of a fast-track normalization deal is running straight into the limits of regional politics, domestic pressure, and red lines. All right, coming up next, the Navy has pulled the plug on its next-generation frigates, leaving a major gap in Washington's plan to match China at sea. I'll be right back. Hey, Mike Baker here, PDB host and well-known snack expert. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever read the label on a typical bag of chips? Give it a go. It's a science experiment of seed oils and MSG and artificial dyes and mystery ingredients. So I want to tell you about a different kind of company. Masa, M-A-S-A. They're redefining snacking with real food, actual real food. Imagine that. Their chips have 3 ingredients. That's it. Organic corn, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. Masa chips leave you satisfied and energized without the crash or bloat or sluggishness. And you may ask, Mike, which are your favorite Masa chips? Well, it's hard to choose from, I'll tell you that, with all the great tastes that they have. They've got original and white and blue and lime and cobanero and churro. Personally, I think I would go with lime. And if you love Masa, then you'll love Vandy Crisps, right? Vandy is Masa's sister company, and they make the most excellent and delicious 3-ingredient potato chips you'll ever taste. Again, just 3 ingredients. Again, the flavor choices are amazing. Original, French onion, herbe de Provence, how's that for a French accent, and smokehouse barbecue. Ready to give Masa or Vandy a try? Well, you should. Use code PDB for 25% off your first order at masachips.com or vandycrisps.com. Or simply click the link in the video description or scan the QR code to claim their delicious offer. Don't feel like ordering online? Well, no problem. Masa and Vandy are now available nationwide at your local Sprouts supermarket. Stop by and pick up a couple of bags now before they're gone. Hey, Mike Baker here. Now, I suspect that you know this. Black Friday is right around the corner. It's almost here. And you probably asked yourself, I would imagine at some point, I wonder if doctors have Black Friday sales. Well, I'll give you the answer. The ones at Brickhouse Nutrition do, right? And they've just announced their Black Friday 30% off sale. It's the biggest sale of the year. The most impressive health and nutrition products in the industry are now 30% off. For example, take Lean. That's L-E-A-N, Lean. It's the doctor-formulated weight loss supplement for people who want to lose meaningful weight without injections. And you can get 30% off creatine. It's creatine designed just for women to help you look leaner, in shape, and toned without extra dieting or exercise. You can even get 30% off the excellent product Field of Greens. You got to try this stuff. It's the only superfruit and vegetable drink shown in a university study to actually slow aging. And only Field of Greens promises better health results that your doctor will notice. Every Brickhouse product, from better sleep to superior collagen, is 30% off. But hurry, because these Black Friday deals go fast. Just visit brickhousesale.com and save 30%. That's brickhousesale.com. One more time, brickhousesale.com. Welcome back to the Afternoon Bulletin. The U.S. Navy's long-promised plan to close the gap with China just took a hit. This week, Navy Secretary John Phelan scrapped the Constellation-class frigate program, a ship once billed as the quick, low-risk way to bulk up America's fleet amid Beijing's rapid naval expansion. After months of overruns, redesign changes, and slipping deadlines, Phelan reached the point where the math simply didn't justify the program anymore. Inside the Pentagon, officials watched the frigate drift further from its off-the-shelf origins and closer to a Frankenstein project, heavier, slower, and nowhere near battle-ready. By the time the latest cost estimates came in, the conclusion was obvious. This was not the ship that was supposed to help close the gap with China. Phelan said so himself when he posted on X, warning that he wouldn't, quote, spend a dollar on anything that failed to strengthen America's ability to win. That set the tone for what came next. The Navy will let the 2 hulls already under construction move forward, but the final 4, the ones that hadn't even been laid down, well, they're being wiped off the slate. To Phelan, it was better to cut cleanly now than drag a failing program deeper into the decade. Well, I can't see any fault with that. He framed the cancellation as part of a broader course correction, saying the Navy is, quote, reshaping how we build and field the fleet, beginning with a strategic shift away from the Constellation-class frigate program, end quote. It was a sharp pivot for a project that began as a 20-ship, $1 billion per hull effort based on Italy's FREM design. It's a model that the U.S. Navy touted initially as low risk, precisely because it was already sailing with European navies. But that pitch didn't survive contact with reality. A blistering Government Accountability Office, or GAO, report released in March found that the Navy ordered so many modifications to meet American security standards that the ship no longer resembled the template that it was modeled on. 5 years after the contract was awarded, the program was just 70% complete and already 3 years behind schedule. Seriously, slipping from its original 2026 delivery target to 2029. Weight growth was so severe that the Navy even considered downgrading the frigate's speed. The GAO's conclusion pulled no punches. The vessel, quote, now bears little resemblance to the parent design that the Navy once advertised as a built-in shortcut. Now, I'd like to point out that the U.S. hasn't had a frigate in service since the USS Simpson was retired back in 2015, leaving a gap between the Navy's heavyweight Arleigh-Burke destroyers and its littoral combat ships. China, meanwhile, is surging ahead. Beijing is expected to field around 400 naval hulls by year's end, including roughly 50 frigates. That's a pace that has pushed the U.S. fleet, at around 240 ships and submarines, into a numerical disadvantage that Washington can no longer ignore. Phelan has been candid about the scale of the Navy's shipbuilding problems. Testifying before Congress last summer, he said, quote, all of our programs are a mess. Well, that's not mincing words, noting that even the service's best-performing program was, quote, 6 months late, and get this, 57% over budget. For now, Phelan's choice is to cut losses and move on. Washington has begun sending maintenance work to South Korea and Japan. Foreign shipbuilders even signaled that they could build American warships outright. I'll bet they'd be keen to do that. But Congress would have to rewrite the laws in order to allow that sort of outsourcing. We'll keep an eye on this important issue. And out of curiosity, I'll ask our ACE team of PDB researchers to investigate when was the last time the U.S. had a major military program that came in on time and on budget. I'll get back to you with that. And that, my friends, is the PDB Afternoon Bulletin for Wednesday, the 26th of November. Now, if you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. And to listen to the show ad-free, well, you can become a premium member of the President's Daily Brief. That's simple. Just visit pdbpremium.com. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool. Hey, Mike Baker here. Well, it is that time of year again. And you say to yourself, Mike, what time of year are you referring to? I'll tell you, it's the one time of year that Birch Gold Group gives away free gold with every qualifying purchase. That's right. For Black Friday, when you convert an existing IRA or a 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold, Birch Gold will send free gold to your home for every $20,000 purchased. Look, gold started this year around, $2,600 an ounce? And by October, it was over $4,000 an ounce. And why? Well, mostly because of global uncertainty. Look, 2025 has been defined by real wars and trade wars and general unease. And central banks, of course, are pulling away from the U.S. dollar as the global reserve currency. So, and I think you know this, during times of uncertainty, that's when gold thrives. If you're looking to diversify your savings, Birch Gold can help. Plus, now through 30th of November, you can get free gold with a qualifying purchase. Just text PDB to 989-898 to claim your eligibility and for a free information kit on gold. But your opportunity for free gold with purchase ends on the 30th of November. So don't wait. Text PDB to 989-898 for all the details.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.